Something happens in every long relationship, and it rarely announces itself. It's not a midlife crisis, not exactly. It's quieter than that, but more powerful. One morning you wake up and realize the person across the table isn't the same one who used to laugh with you until midnight. The routines are still there, the bills still paid, the coffee still poured, but the air feels heavier. Life has seasons, and somewhere between late 30s and early 40s, a new one begins, one built not on discovery, but on reflection. 4 years, two people built a shared identity: parent, partner, provider. Their love was an engine powered by purpose. Then suddenly, the engine sputters. The kids need them less, the career becomes predictable, the reflection in the mirror looks familiar but strangely foreign. This is the identity shift. The moment when the story you've been living no longer fits the person you've become. For many women, the change feels like disappearance, a fading into roles that once gave meaning but now feel suffocating. For many men, it feels like rejection, a slow drifting away from the warmth that used to define home. Both are terrified, but for different reasons. The woman wonders, who am I beyond what everyone needs me to be? The man wonders, what did I do wrong? It's not about blame. It's about biology, psychology, and culture colliding all at once. The hormones that once fueled intensity begin to wane. The social feedback that once affirmed identity grows silent. The world, obsessed with youth and novelty, starts treating stability as boredom. And so, people begin to search, not always consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively, for something that makes them feel alive again. It starts subtly. Late night scrolling through old photos. Reconnecting with friends from another life. Obsessing over wellness routines, fitness, small self-reinventions that promise renewal. It's not vanity. It's survival. The human psyche can only live so long without affirmation before it starts hunting for it. Partners watch this unfold and panic. They interpret the search for self as betrayal, the need for distance as rejection. But what's really happening is an internal earthquake, the collapse of an identity built entirely on serving others. Midlife doesn't just expose wrinkles on the skin, it exposes fractures in the soul. The person who once kept everything together begins to crumble under invisible pressure. They want to feel seen again, not admired, not idolized, just noticed. They want to know they still matter as an individual, not just as a function within the family system. Meanwhile, the other partner stands in the wreckage of familiarity, holding on to memories that no longer feel shared. They see the same face, hear the same voice, but sense a different spirit. And in that confusion, they ask the question echoing through countless homes: what happened to us? The answer is rarely one event. It's the slow erosion of self beneath the weight of duty. It's the human cost of pretending that love can survive without constant curiosity. When people stop being curious about each other, they stop truly seeing each other. And that invisibility, for both men and women, becomes unbearable. The truth is, this isn't a story about gender at all. It's a story about identity decay, the way adult life, in its pursuit of safety and responsibility, quietly starves the parts of us that need adventure, attention, and wonder. Midlife isn't the death of youth. It's the death of illusion. The illusion that you can build a permanent identity out of temporary roles. The illusion that the person you love will stay the same forever. The illusion that routine equals stability. When those illusions die, the soul goes searching. And that search, if misunderstood, can destroy everything. But beneath the fear and confusion, there's an opportunity hidden inside the crisis. The chance to rediscover each other, not as husband and wife, mother and father, but as two people trying to find meaning in the middle of life. Because identity doesn't disappear, it just demands to be rewritten. The question is, will you write it together, or alone? It doesn't happen overnight. It builds quietly, like pressure beneath the floorboards. One small disappointment, one dull argument, one more night where you talk logistics instead of dreams. Slowly, intimacy turns into maintenance. Affection becomes duty. Life becomes predictable, and predictability, though safe, can start to feel like suffocation. The human brain isn't built for endless stability. It needs surprise, growth, movement. That's the cruel paradox of long-term love. The very security we fight to create eventually starves the same curiosity that built it. And in midlife, that paradox hits hardest. For many women, this storm begins inside their own bodies. Hormones that once fueled emotion, energy, and connection begin to fluctuate wildly. Sleep changes. Moods shift. The mirror becomes a stranger's reflection. But the chaos isn't just physical, it's existential. They start to ask questions that have no easy answers. Have I wasted time? Have I lived for others more than for myself? Will anyone ever see me the way they used to? For many men, the crisis comes from the outside in. The world stops congratulating effort. The praise fades. The purpose feels mechanical. He becomes reliable, but invisible. The same routine that once felt noble now feels empty. He wonders, did I do everything right just to end up feeling this wrong? Two storms, opposite in direction, meet in the middle of the same home. She starts craving intensity, emotion, validation, the spark that once defined her sense of being alive. He starts craving calm, appreciation, and respect, the reassurance that everything he's built still matters. They want opposite things for the same reason, to feel valued again. That's the invisible tragedy of this stage. Both partners think the other stopped caring, when in reality, both are starving for the same thing, recognition. And when they stop finding it in each other, the world rushes in to fill the void. Social media becomes a portal, a mirror that reflects back a younger, freer version of who they used to be. Every scroll whispers, "You could be more. You deserve better. You've been living small." It's seductive. It promises escape, reinvention, youth. But it never tells the cost: the homes left silent, the hearts left behind. Modern culture doesn't teach endurance. It teaches reinvention. When things get hard, it says start over. When you feel unseen, chase validation. When you're scared of fading, perform brightness until someone claps. And so people perform. They curate their pain into posts. They chase attention disguised as healing. They tell themselves it's self-care when it's really self-erasure. The storm grows. The nights out get longer. The conversations get shorter. The eye contact disappears. You stop touching. You stop laughing. The house feels like an airport terminal. People passing through, waiting for somewhere else to be. Then comes the guilt. The guilt of wanting more. The guilt of feeling trapped. The guilt of resenting the very life you once prayed for. That guilt breeds confusion. And confusion, left unspoken, becomes resentment. Resentment is the quiet poison of relationships. It doesn't explode, it seeps. Slowly. Invisibly. Until one day, you look across the room and realize the person you love now feels like a stranger living on the other side of a glass wall. You can see them, hear them, but you can't reach them anymore. But here's the truth most people never say out loud: every storm has two sides. The woman who feels unseen isn't selfish for wanting to feel alive again. The man who feels replaced by routine isn't weak for wanting peace. Both are human. Both are scared. Both are trying to make sense of a changing world with tools that stopped working years ago. The midlife storm isn't a failure. It's a calling. A call to look deeper. To realize that the version of love that carried you through your 20s might not be strong enough to carry you through your 40s. Love must evolve or it dies. It's not a static promise. It's a living organism that needs new air, new meaning, new stories to survive. The challenge is that evolution requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is terrifying when you already feel unseen. It's easier to scroll than to speak. Easier to fantasize than to confess. Easier to blame than to rebuild. But the storm doesn't end by waiting it out. It ends when both people decide to stop defending their pain and start understanding it. Because beneath every fight about dishes or schedules or time apart, there's usually one unspoken plea: see me. Hear me. Remember who I am. And if that plea isn't answered, the silence becomes deafening. Midlife doesn't destroy love. It exposes whether that love can adapt. Whether two people can see each other not as who they were, but as who they're becoming. It's not the end of a marriage that breaks most people. It's the death of identity. The realization that the person you became while building a life might not be the person who can live it happily. That's the inner storm. It's not hatred. It's hunger. For meaning, for attention, for life again. And if it's ignored, it doesn't pass. It detonates. The world outside the home has changed faster than the people inside it. Once, connection meant community, conversation, shared purpose. Now, it's performance. Every scroll is a mirror, every like a tiny hit of validation, every image a reminder that someone, somewhere, is living a version of life that looks freer, younger, lighter. In this new landscape, attention isn't just a commodity, it's oxygen. And for anyone feeling invisible, it becomes a lifeline. The midlife identity crisis doesn't happen in isolation anymore. It happens under a spotlight. A woman questioning her purpose no longer sits quietly with her thoughts. She opens her phone and is met with millions of voices telling her who she should be. Glow up. Reinvent yourself. You deserve better. Don't settle. Each slogan, perfectly packaged, sounds empowering but hides a dangerous subtext. Start over. Leave what's safe. Become someone new. For men, the message is equally poisonous. Work harder. Earn more. Stay strong. Don't feel too much. Their pain is filtered through memes about stoicism and success, through influencers who call empathy weakness. Both genders are fed illusions, one of endless empowerment, the other of emotionless endurance. Both are sold versions of strength that quietly destroy connection. The cultural mirage is perfectly designed. It tells people to chase happiness while quietly making them forget what contentment feels like. You see it everywhere. The self-improvement industry sells transformation like salvation. Social media preaches reinvention as identity. Pop psychology reduces human struggle to catchy mantras. Heal. Manifest. Align. Vibrate higher. It all sounds good, but most of it feeds the same restlessness that started the fire in the first place. Because real healing isn't glamorous. It's not found in crystals or captions. It's found in uncomfortable conversations, long silences, and facing the parts of yourself that don't look good on camera. But our culture doesn't reward depth. It rewards spectacle. So when a person starts to feel trapped, unseen, or irrelevant, the path of escape seems obvious. Break free, reinvent, post about it. The algorithms will even reward it. Every "you deserve better" comment, every "queen energy" reply, every fire emoji becomes digital applause for burning down the old life. It's not always conscious, but it's intoxicating. The dopamine rush from attention mimics meaning. The flood of validation masks the loneliness. The performance of confidence hides the fear that started it all, the fear of fading. And the more they chase that feeling, the more reality becomes unbearable. The spouse who once symbolized safety now represents stagnation. The family dinner becomes proof of routine. The home becomes a cage. The phone, a portal to the fantasy of freedom. It's not evil. It's not malicious. It's human. The brain is wired to seek novelty, to escape discomfort. But when that instinct meets a world designed to exploit it, the result is chaos. Suddenly, ordinary life doesn't stand a chance against the curated illusion of extraordinary living. The woman who feels forgotten sees endless examples of women, starting over, and glowing with newfound purpose. The man who feels unappreciated scrolls past highlight reels of men conquering success, wealth, and validation. No one posts the loneliness, the regret, the quiet nights after the applause fades. We're a culture addicted to the beginning of stories, not the endings. And so, both men and women chase reinvention without realizing that it often costs the very things that once grounded them. But here's the paradox. The search for freedom often becomes its own prison. The more you try to prove that you're still alive, the more dependent you become on external proof. Every compliment, every like, every flirtation becomes fuel, and when it stops, the emptiness returns stronger than before. The truth is, peace doesn't trend. Stability doesn't go viral. But those are the very things that sustain us when the dopamine runs dry. And that's what the cultural mirage hides. The quiet, boring, beautiful truth that real happiness isn't loud. It's built in the ordinary moments, the laughter at the end of a long day, the shared silence, the comfort of knowing someone sees you even when the world doesn't. But we've been trained to see comfort as stagnation and peace as weakness. We've been taught to worship excitement instead of meaning. So, when midlife arrives and the noise fades, many people panic. They don't know how to live without applause. They don't know how to love without an audience. They confuse being unseen with being unloved. And so, they chase the mirage. They run toward the light of freedom, not realizing it's just another screen reflecting their own longing back at them. This is the trap of modern adulthood. We build entire lives seeking stability, then abandon them because we mistake stillness for death. But maybe stillness isn't death. Maybe it's just life asking us to listen again. Because beneath the noise, beneath the filters, beneath the slogans disguised as wisdom, the real question waits, quiet, steady, patient. Who am I when no one's watching? That's the question the cultural mirage distracts us from. And if we don't answer it, we'll spend our lives chasing reflections that vanish the moment we reach for them. Every storm eventually ends, but the landscape it leaves behind is never the same. The hardest truth about love and identity is that sometimes the person who walks out of the storm isn't the same one who walked in. Midlife has a way of tearing down everything that was built on autopilot, roles, routines, illusions, and forcing us to rebuild from the rubble. But if you're still standing, if you're still willing to look honestly at what remains, there's hope. Because what's left after the storm is what's real. The rebuilding begins quietly. No grand gestures, no cinematic apologies, no sudden clarity. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy at first, but slowly starts to sound like peace. For the first time in years, you're not reacting, you're reflecting. You start to see that love isn't about reliving who you were. It's about rediscovering who you're becoming. The version of your partner who's changing isn't your enemy. They're a mirror, reflecting the same confusion you feel. You're both trying to hold on to something that time keeps reshaping. The truth is, nobody escapes the identity crisis. Everyone faces it in some form. The question of whether what they've built is truly theirs or just what the world expected of them. Rebuilding after that realization requires humility. It requires seeing your partner not as a role but as a person again. A person who's scared, evolving, searching. And it requires being brave enough to admit that you're searching too. The couples who survive this phase don't do it by clinging to the past. They do it by rebuilding curiosity, by replacing judgment with understanding, by asking the questions they stopped asking years ago. What are you afraid of? What makes you feel alive now? What does love look like for you at this stage of life? These questions sound simple, but they're revolutionary. Because they remind you that love isn't static, it's a living thing that needs to be fed, stretched, challenged. When you stop assuming you already know your partner, you create space for them to become known again. For some, that rebuilding happens together. For others, it happens apart. But in both cases, it starts with the same decision: to stop blaming and start understanding. Peace doesn't come from going back. It comes from going deeper. It comes from accepting that your worth isn't tied to how desirable you are, or how much you can provide, or how perfectly you play your role. It comes from being comfortable with the silence inside yourself. Because when you find that silence, you no longer need the noise of validation to feel real. Modern culture glorifies starting over, but true strength lies in staying still long enough to repair what's broken. Staying doesn't always mean staying in the same relationship. It means staying with yourself through the discomfort, instead of escaping it. When people finally sit with their loneliness, something powerful happens. The desperation turns into understanding. The fear turns into focus. The pain stops being punishment and starts being information. You begin to see that the ache you felt for attention was really a cry for connection, to yourself, to your purpose, to something bigger than endless distraction. Peace isn't found in youth, or beauty, or novelty. It's found in awareness, in realizing that nothing you chase externally can replace the meaning you build internally. That's the lesson the storm was trying to teach all along. And if two people can learn that at the same time, they can rebuild something stronger than what they had before. Not the naive love of the beginning, but the grounded love that comes after truth, the kind that doesn't need fantasy to feel alive. It's not easy. Some days you'll still miss the thrill, the simplicity of old routines, the illusion of certainty. But with time, you realize that love's real power isn't in excitement, it's in endurance. It's in choosing to see each other again when it would be easier to look away. Maybe the purpose of midlife isn't to destroy love, but to purify it. To strip away everything false and leave only what's real. The romance that survives this stage isn't built on appearance or approval, it's built on awareness. Two people who know who they are, who understand what peace costs, and who choose it anyway. And if you're rebuilding alone, there's beauty in that too. Because solitude, when it's no longer filled with fear, becomes freedom. The kind of freedom that isn't about escape, but about presence. You begin to understand that happiness isn't something you find, it's something you allow. The world will keep selling distraction. It will keep shouting that excitement is the cure for emptiness. But you'll know better. You'll have walked through the fire and realized that peace isn't boring, it's sacred. So you stop chasing intensity and start protecting calm. You stop comparing your life to the highlight reels of others. You stop trying to prove your worth and start living it. And one quiet morning, you'll wake up, look at your reflection, and realize something profound. You no longer need to be seen to know that you exist. That's the end of the storm. Not fireworks, not closure, not revenge. Just peace. The kind of peace that comes after chaos, when you've learned that the greatest love story isn't about finding someone else, it's about finding yourself and still having the courage to love again.